Canon William Charles Campling was my grandfather. He was a very impressive man. He was 6'6". He was a kind of gentle giant, really. And we all loved him as one of his many grandchildren. And he was a very inspiring person in the sense that he was a very spiritual man and he was a clergyman. So one got a sense of maybe the kind of best of humanity from him. And so it's been wonderful to write a piece which was based on some of his own words. The diaries were not discovered until after William's death. Apparently he never talked about the war to his immediate family, although there was a picture of him as an army chaplain which was on his desk. He never talked about the war, and the family had no idea that the diaries existed. They were simply discovered in the attic as they were going through things after his passing away. Music, yeah. I think my style of music often tends to use vernacular, whether that be hymns or workers' songs or lullabies or whatever. So I often integrate those into my larger pieces. So it seemed obvious to me in writing this piece to use some hymns, a German folk song, a French song, and of course some Latin text as well. So there are different styles and genres in a sense within the work as a whole, and so that was an important part of the structuring the piece. My father had mentioned the diaries quite a while before I decided that I would like to write a piece based on the diaries. I think that I felt when I was a younger man that I wasn't ready to compose a piece of this nature because it's dealing with very profound and deep events. But I decided, about 5 years ago to really launch into working on the work on the text, and some of it came quite quickly. And I got a fairly clear structure in my mind for the work. But I found that I was very unclear about how I would end the work, and I found that by far the hardest thing to do. But I was very lucky because a good friend of mine said to me on one occasion, "Why don't you come down to Sandham, which is where there's a memorial chapel based on the works of Stanley Spencer, a very fine painter who created some very, sad pictures of the war, but also some very uplifting ones in a strange kind of way. Pictures of soldiers eating strawberry sandwiches, things like that, in times obviously when they were relaxing. So that kind of gave me a kind of emotional fillip, I think, and a motivation to work, to go back to the work, to the final movement especially. And suddenly things fell into place, and I eventually produced a final movement that I was happy with, which doesn't in any way denigrate the huge kind of sadness and conflict which is manifested earlier in the work, but somehow does come up with a kind of message of hope to end the work. I think the first word would be pity, which of course features in Wilfred Owen's poems a lot, and indeed one of Owen's poems does feature in the work. So pity because of the slaughter. Secondly, anger, which manifests itself just very occasionally in my grandfather's diaries, when he's so angry about the militarism and the slaughter. So pity and anger. and maybe on a positive front, a sense of hope. Interestingly, when we sing, as we do in the work, "Abide with me," I'm very much want it not to be just a dirge, but it has a sense of hope. "Abide with me, fast falls the eventide." But there is a sense of hope that the soldiers carried with them throughout the war, in spite of losing comrades. So there's a sense of hope. And then in the final movement, the music rises into, in a sense, the climax of the work, where the choir sings Pacem, and one hopes for a sense of transcendence there, where the performers sing of hope and of love and of goodwill towards their fellow men. So I think that would be my final sense of emotion. So pity, anger, hope, and goodwill and love towards all men.